Yo, what's going on people, and welcome back to the channel. Something a little bit different this week. I'm going to show you how I make jazz chords and how I make them sort of samples. So I'll take you through the process of how I made this. Yeah, stick around and I'll break down how I structure these chords to have that certain jazz feeling. And yeah, follow my Instagram, that's going to be on the screen. Let's get straight into this. So for jazz chords you need a piano. This was a studio ground by Addictive Keys. Had a nice reverb and warm tone to it. So these are the chords I made. So this was made in a D minor scale, but you can have actual keys out of scale. So as you can see here, there's a B. If you can see the black shades, the B is out of the scale, but in jazz you can do half steps to just give that certain jazz feeling. So I use that there, and then I just went up with the chords like a minor, just flip the minor up, just to give it that natural tension feeling. And then I just brought it back down again. And then I just used accent keys to just give that certain rhythm. And one tip I'd say is just have a little play around with the keys that are not in the scale, but don't go too crazy. You'll be able to tell which sounds right and doesn't. You just got to make sure they work with the chord progressions before and after that bar. So for that, again, just the reels, but I put quite a lot of noise on it just to give that natural feeling. And I didn't go too heavy on the reverb because it was a natural reverb already on the VST. And as usual, I just took out some lows and boosted some highs just to give it a little bit more of a tone. And then I just put a flanger on it just to give that little bit more of a depth. Then I use this FL Studio FPC drum machine. If you go in the presets here, go to HQ Jazz Kit, you just get all jazz sounds that sound like this. And all I do with that is just make a rhythm in the background, so I'll show you. As you can see at the end of the fourth bar, I just build off them keys that were in the first piano. And then I use this compressor just to tighten the drums a little bit, just to give it a little bit more of a natural level. Just a slight room reverb just to give it that airiness. Then I put another compressor on it just to bring it up in the levels a little bit. Then I use this JJP cymbal and perk sort of thing. I just give it a little bit more of a tone and a punch, just to give it a little bit more presence, but not sound too over processed. And then I just took out some lows from the certain sounds that was just a bit too muddy. As in all jazz sort of music, there's a bass, so I added this bass to bounce off. Then with that, I just use it to build tension in the whole sample. And then with the bass, I didn't add any processing, I just brought it down to the levels. And then just to touch on that jazz feeling, I added this vintage brass sound. Then I messed with the sustain and release just to give it a plausible volume. And then with that, I just gave it a counter melody just to build off the chords. Then with jazz chords, it's just gives you a nice little feeling. And for that, I used the reels again. Then I used the reverb, quite a little bit of mix, but just brought the size down just to give it that airiness and density. Then I found this bass sound that just give it a nice little build up. It sounds like this. And I didn't add any processing on that whatsoever. And all these sounds complement each other and just give that nice jazz element. Then I used another brass sound by Mellotron and did a counter melody just to give it that feeling of jazz again. And this is what really builds the rhythm behind the whole sample. I use this valve compressor and compress the hell out of it just to give it a gritty feeling. And then just turned up this lo-fi as well. And then I added this large chamber reverb just to give it a smooth decay, but I brought the mix down and the depth because I didn't want it to be too wide. And then as usual, the same sort of delay that I always use just to give it that build up in the background. And then as it was a high pitched brass sound, I wanted to take out the harshness, so I just brought this down. Then again, I added another upright piano, but this was more mellow and just had a nicer tone to it. And all this was for is just background accents just to give it a nice melodic feel. And as you can see, 2 of the chords are just quite heavy, and then the other one's strummed. That's just to give it that natural jazz feel. And all I did was that again, because it was a high pitched sound, just give it a little bit of a reverb. Didn't need to do any other processing. Then I used this woodwind sound. I brought up the attack a bit because it was just too much. Then the sustain and release just midway. And I had that really low because it was a really high pitched sound. And all these different pitches of frequencies and all these different sounds just fit together nicely in the sound selection. Then I added this plate again, quite heavy. And then again just took out that high mid just to take out that presence because it was just too much. As you can see here, I put some of the sounds in like mono. That's because I wanted the reverb to be not as wide and be more central. And then I used like left and right just to give it a nice little spacings of all the woodwinds and like brass sounds. With the final sample, I brought it down 6 semitones, and this is how it sounds all together. As you can tell, it gives that nice jazz feeling with the chords just going up and down in the octaves, and it just gives a lot of space for like an artist, or if you want to add vocals or something. So that is that for this video, and if you've got any ideas of me to make the next video, please comment that down below. Subscribe, follow my Instagram that's going to be on the screen, and that would be me in this one. I'm out. Peace.